How you doing? Welcome back. My name is Rick. This is Winder's Ranger. I wanted to share today, it's kind of a bush crafting tip. It's kind of a reenactor, living historian tip. Maybe just an all everyday camping tip. I don't know. It transcends a lot of those different topics. Some years ago I was involved in living history, we'll call it, just for the sake of the YouTube algorithms and things, so I don't get some kind of a strike or have the video deleted or something like that down the road. The time period would fall really any time, but specifically the time period that I was involved in was 1860 to 1865. Living histories that portrayed various military units and things of that time period. And it was shared with me through other members of my group that I was a part of. And this may be common knowledge, well known. It may not be so well known among the living historian groups that are out there, whether they're the quote-unquote hardcore guys, the progressives, whatever you want to call them. The mainstreamers can even use this, I suppose, depending. I think it could also be a good bushcrafting tip. I was watching, I can't think of his name right now. I met him through Raindance Bushcraft. He's up in Canada, and he told me about, or told everybody on his live stream about this guy, and I started watching him. It was, I want to say Canoe Hound, I think his name is. I forget now. And he was testing a product. It was like a coffee pot lid that transformed into a pan or a cup or something like that. And it all fit together into a condensed carrying case or carrying module. And you could take this thing apart and make soup or coffee or different things over the fire. And I noticed he was carrying gloves, and he was referencing an issue about having to get something off the fire because it was hot. It had, I don't know I forget what he was boiling. It was soup or something like that. And it made me remember, I haven't pulled this stuff out in quite a while, but it made me remember part of my living history kit. And with that, we'll just get straight into it. What this is a, would be a mid-war, probably 1863-ish, soft double bag backpack or knapsack. And at that time, the Federal Army was carrying, you would have your bedroll, maybe a change or two of long underwear, socks, shirt, whatever you would have been what you were issued, but probably once you were on a campaign or you had been in the military for a while, it was probably whatever you had left or whatever was still in decent shape that you were carrying. You may get a shirt sent from home, things like that. All of those types of things would go inside here. Your bedroll, blanket, gum rubber poncho, things like that would go on top. This isn't the most period blanket. It was one that I had gotten, actually I think it was in the bag. I bought the bag used. And it was inside there, and it's reasonable. It just kind of gets by until I was able to get something a little bit more period correct, which never happened. So stuck with this one for now. But anyway, bedroll would go on top, and you'd have two leather straps or two leather straps with buckles that attach that to the top of the double bag. And on the reverse side, or on your back, are the two leather straps that go over your shoulders. And then I've seen different references, whether these are a chest strap that goes in between, which probably is, that's what it was designed. But there's a few period photographs of that time period where infantrymen or whoever was using the bag would use the little J-hooks and hook it on their waist belt and pull down to help keep the bag high up on your shoulders. One of the issues that you run into, and I'll have to pull this out to demonstrate it, see if it'll actually do it for me. A lot of times, and you'll see rookie living historians, maybe people that just aren't in the know. I was one of those people at one time. I'll share this, maybe it'll help somebody else. When you carry your bag, especially a heavy bedroll, tends to want to flop, and it hangs off the back of the bag, and it sticks out that much further. And when you're in formations and you're turning, This ends up being a hindrance. That you're hitting people with the back of that bag, so it hangs off your back. Sticks out that much further, and in tight quarters where you've got large numbers of people, it gets to be kind of annoying. So there's different ways to fix that. And this isn't really the main topic, but I'm using the video to kind of flip-flop or transcend between the two different topics. One way is to take these straps and to loop them through your shoulder straps. I can't really see the screen if I'm getting that on there. But that way, when you put it over your back, it pulls that bedroll forward and back up against the back of your neck, more so than it is flopping back behind you. So when you turn, you're not hitting people as you turn for different formations. The way that I do it, that was shown to me, that I personally prefer, is using just a stick. Plain old stick, nothing fancy. If you're using it for that purpose only, just a straight stick, something not too terribly big, weaves through the one bedroll strap, under a shoulder strap, under the other shoulder strap, and then through the other bedroll strap. And what happens is, when you put your your knapsack on, as this rests over your shoulder, that stick forces that bedroll to stay up tight and has it sit up on top of the bag where it belongs, as opposed to hanging off the back. It works pretty well. I've seen a lot of variations to this, but if you look around, if you're in this type of a hobby, I cringe when I say hobby, but lack of a better term for right now. If you look around, you'll see some folks are doing this. I don't know if it's still popular or not. It's been probably a good 10 years since I've really done any living histories at all. But I guess the question is this period correct? And I can't recall ever seeing a photograph with somebody using a stick, so don't quote me on that one. I'm not real sure. Seems to me that common sense would dictate, you know, sooner or later those guys would have figured something like this out if they didn't just throw their bedroll away, or kept the bedroll where you would roll it up into a shoulder sling type and just get rid of the double bag. I guess there's probably as many different ways as there were people that had to do it. But the benefit to this type of stick, as you pull it out, you see how that bedroll flopped down? You might not have been able to see it. When I pulled that out, it immediately flopped back. But there's a dual purpose for this stick. I don't have any idea what type of wood this was. I picked this up, I think I was in, I want to say I was in Boonesboro, Maryland, somewhere around South Mountain, maybe Antietam, somewhere in that neck of the woods. I don't remember the name of the event right now off the top of my head. It might have been, well, anyway, it was, I want to say it was Boonesboro. And I had a different stick, and I had cut a notch into the top of the stick there. I don't know if that'll focus. Try to hold it right up there, maybe it will. And the purpose in that notch, the old stick that I had, the notch, the one half of that had broken off, so I had to replace it. And just by happenstance, the stick was laying, and it was just exactly how you see it, minus cut the length with the notch. It had already been peeled, probably just by natural forces, just sitting out in the weather. The bark had peeled off of it, whatever it is. I don't know what type of tree this came from. I think it was more like, it might have been like a, well, I don't know. Anyway, it was basically just as we see it. But it had a notch here, and what this notch is, if you can see here, there's a spot where a branch came off on either side. Little twigs came off of there. That's what this was. This was another knuckle where the same thing, there was a branch came off one side, and I think a branch came off the other side. I cut it just past that, and I cut it up here on the other end. And I think originally I cut it long, or what I thought was going to be long, and I had intended on cutting it down to fit on the double bag a little bit better. The size ended up being pretty good just the way it was. On this knuckle, I cut that notch out of there, and the purpose in that notch is a couple of fold. It has a couple of different purposes. I didn't get my canteen half, one of the plates of the time, or something that you would use as a plate in that time period, would be one of the canteens, a smooth-sided canteen. What they would do is they would take, there's just a solder or a tin solder or something like that that they would use to hold those together. And they would heat that up, melt that solder, take and hit it on a rock or something like that, and get a pocket knife in there, pull those two pieces apart, and you end up with half of a canteen, half of a canteen. And this ends up being your handle. With that notch, you get that on the end of or the side of that canteen, and you can pick it up like a plate, put it in the fire, put it out of the fire. I didn't grab the canteen half, but I did grab my mucket. It's kind of a difference between a mug, cup. It's got a bail on it so you can boil coffee in it. Just a little pro tip, if you boil coffee in this, I don't recommend you drink out of this right away, because the tin gets extremely hot and you will burn the crap out of your lip. That's experience talking right there. But anyway, the notch on that stick, you can also get on your bail, set it in the fire, pick it up out of the fire. You can get another stick, or sometimes I'll carry a handkerchief or something like that, and you grab around that handle, and then you can pour the contents out. You can pour, say you got a soup in there, you want to pour some of the broth off, you can do that. The lid kind of helps hold all that in. But that's what that stick also comes in handy for. I don't really have anything to demonstrate a plate. I guess I can use the side of the cup. It's kind of the same principle. But basically you just grab a hold of it, just stick it right on the edge of your plate like that, and just the friction will hold that, and you can put it in the fire, pull it out of the fire. I don't see why that wouldn't also work in a bushcrafting type situation. It's a really lightweight stick. No idea what it weighs, but it's virtually nothing. I mean, you throw this on a bag, you can put it in a pouch. In this case, you know, across the straps on my bedroll. It doesn't take a whole lot to carry it. I would say that can fit in most everyday hiking scenario. You know, there's a lot of different modern technologies, a lot of modern solutions to accomplish the very same thing. So it may not fit every situation. Just watching the Canoe Hound fella with his review that he was doing on the pots and pans and things. In his situation, I think this probably would have worked okay. Some of those plates, you know, they've got a high lip, just like you would on this cup. So trying to grab a hold of it with this might not work so well. But more of a frying pan plate. I got a plastic plate here. Again, kind of cringe-worthy to bring it into a bushcrafting video or a living history video, but for the sake of demonstration, just a plastic plate. It's really nothing fancy. But the same principle, you know, it's just something that you can grab a hold of, you know. Obviously you want to be careful. There is a little bit of a rotation there. Seems like it works a little bit better on metal, tin, that type of thing. Because there's that plastic's got it's smooth-sided, so the friction's going to be a lot less on that plastic than it would be on your metal or something like that. Plus the weight's a little bit different. So anyway, that's my stick, and I'm sticking to it. Maybe one day I'll get back into the living history stuff. Maybe I can make some more of these videos. I don't know. See how this one goes. Not exactly sure how I'm going to title this or how I'm going to do the searching tags. Try to get this video out there. But I wanted to share that. Mainly for some of the reenacting friends of mine. I would like to think that anybody in that lifestyle, you know, of living history, the reenactors, doesn't matter what time period it is, the love of history that we all have, that is the reason why we go out there and do those things, to honor the people that came before us, and that's all of us. That's doesn't matter what country you're from, because there's Roman reenactors, there's German reenactors, there's Civil War reenactors, there's Revolutionary War, French and Indian War, you know, the French reenactors of Napoleon's army. There's reenactors for every time period, even World War II reenactors now. That's becoming the new Civil War era, you know, the popularity that comes with it. But the love of the history and the honoring the people that did that before us is the reason why those of us do the living history. And I would like to think that that alone brings us together as one big family, sharing that love of history and wanting to share the knowledge, the experiences, and that's a whole different video, the experiences of going out into a field or whatever and living whatever time period this is for a weekend, even though it's just a weekend. Some people would argue it's not really, obviously it's not the real thing. You get to go home at the end of the weekend, but still, it's an experience all its own. I maybe do a video just talking about that someday. But in any case, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it helps. I hope maybe gives a little bit of insight. Maybe it'll help somebody else and they can share this with the next person down the road. And you know, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I would appreciate that. Helps me kind of steer the channel and know what's working and what's not. If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. Join me on the next video. That'll keep you up to date on upcoming videos and trips and different things that we've got going on and coming down the pike. That being said, take care of yourself, and we'll see you on the next video.